Morning, everyone. How are you doing? Greetings, Montrose. Glad you're with us this morning. How many of you are using RPR currently? Okay, a few. Good. Well, what we're going to do this morning is kind of give you a 30,000-foot view of RPR and some of the things you can do with it. RPR was concepted in 2008 as part of NAR's 21st Century Initiatives. It came online in middle to late 2009 and has been growing ever since then. I had the privilege of being one of the first beta testers and have watched this thing come from a thought all the way to where it is today. In the first few years, we were getting updates on the program about 3 times a month. Now it's about once in a quarter that they'll launch an update. And a lot of that comes from your feedback, and I'm going to show you when we first get started how you can provide feedback on what you would like to see in the program. Like I say, it's grown exponentially since it started. Hope to guide you through this, show you some of the tools. This isn't going to be a deep drill. We're just going to kind of walk you through everything that the program can do for you. This is a member benefit, so this is included in your dues dollars. You also must be an NAR member, so you have to have a NERDS number in order to log into this. Even though those of you here in the Denver area can see the RPR symbol on RE Colorado, you have to have that login to get into that level of information. So first let's talk about what it is. What it is, and the original concept was to catalog 163 million parcels of real property in the United States. They're at about 157 right now, so they're real close, but as things develop and large parcels are subdivided, it continues to grow and they'll continue to chase that. What it isn't is a national MLS, nor is it intended to be. We'll talk towards the end about some things that are going on that will lead you to kind of think it might be headed that direction, but it's not. It is a compilation, a one-stop shop for all public information on a parcel of property. That's an important thing to remember, because if the public records are wrong, RPR is likely to be wrong. There again is where your feedback comes into play, and we'll talk about what impact your adjustments on RPR have. But the idea is to give you a place where you can find as much public information on a property in one stop as you can. You can find everything you're going to see here somewhere. It's the difference of, do you want to spend 4 or 5 hours going to different websites to try and pull this information up? Or do you want to come in here and have it all accessible to you fairly easily? Any questions so far? All right, well, let's get started on this, and we'll get you hopefully a much better understanding of what we're working with here. Where we are right here is the landing page when you go to set up your account profile. It's going to ask for all your information, your office information. It will ask for your NERDS number and to create a password. This one looks pretty bland because this is my training account. My personal account is much more branded, and if you are a broker owner, you have the ability through the broker tools to brand it to your office. So all the reports will come up with your office logo and that type of information attached to the reports. Set up your password, security questions, and as you come down, your license number and other important information. Once you have set up your profile, you now have access to the mobile apps as well. But you have to do this part first before you have access to the mobile apps. So once we've got our profile set up, let's go see what we can do with this. All right, here is your landing page when you log in. You have the ability to search all properties in an area, those for sale, those for lease. You can look at certain neighborhoods and see what the characteristics of those neighborhoods are. Search school districts or specific schools, or do a market activity report. You can also, on your profile page, save certain areas that you want to monitor. So if you have a zip code that you want to keep track of, all you have to do is save it in your profile. When you click on it, this is going to give me the market activity for 814. What's for sale, listed in blue. If there are distressed properties, they would be listed in red. Recent solds are going to be in green. Off markets in light gray. NED has been filed. The question for you in Montrose is what makes it a distressed property. So if the NED has been filed, then it would be in a pre-foreclosure mode. So let's take a look. If we wanted to search all properties in an area, you would type in a zip code or a metropolitan area. And this is going to give you a snapshot of everything in the area. This is your first page. We can look at it in the list view. You also have on the right-hand column a map view. So here are the recently solds in the Denver metro area. We can either come here so that the full page is going to be a map view, or we can work off of this graphic here. And if we want it bigger, this gives us that information on a slightly bigger map. Since we were on the map section, let me show you a couple other options that you have. The maps are all coded to heat maps. So we can come in and you can overlay what the estimated home values are been. You can do a 12-month change. There's a variety of overlays that you can put through here. You can even come in here and look at flood zones, and it's pulling this information straight from the FEMA maps. So if you have a client that's looking at a house, is it in a flood zone, you can pull that overlay and give them that information. All right? So let's back up and take a look at an individual property and what that can look like. Excuse me. All right, this is 1024 Quarry Street. First thing we're going to see is an RVM. Two types of valuations on property. AVM, automated value model. That's a fairly common way of valuing property. It's what you see in a value check type value, a Zestimate, some of those type of things. That's taking a look and saying, okay, this house is this house wherever it is in this zip code. Regardless of how it sits, it's going to be worth this much. RVM calls on our expertise to influence that price point and say, does a house that backs up to Yosemite have a different value than one that's in the middle of, say, Walnut Creek? And how those values are affected by that placement. And that's where we tweak this information. So the first thing you see is just an RVM based on the information that RPR has pulled as what are going to be comparable properties. Immediately to the right, opportunity to refine that, and we'll get into that in a second. Then what the comps look like, and that's a further refinement. And you can see that this one's jumped about, or dropped about $9,000. As we come down the page, here's the information on the property. Here's the range of the RVM estimate. We come over to our map, and here's where the house is in the neighborhood. Come up and make our map bigger. Here's our subject, always shown in gold. Here's what's sold recently in that area. Anybody familiar with this area? Okay, this is Hoffman Heights. All right, so here's our key on what's going on in that neighborhood. Again, we have our heat maps. Here's pictures of the house. These can either be from the county record, or if the property is listed, it will reflect the most recent listing photos. Information about the area. It's going to give you values of the zip code in the county and in the state. This information is going to follow the right-hand side of the first 3 pages as we move through here. So you always have this to reference back to. While we're here, I'm going to jump to one other thing. Right here you see property analysis for investors. This is a little tool that you have. If you have somebody that's looking at buying this house for an investment purpose, you can go in and trigger this. It'll bring up this page here. Now this particular property, and I'll show you here in just a second, but this particular property is going to trustee sale tomorrow for $106,000. So at $106,000, there's some pretty good equity in that house, correct? So when we look at our investor analysis page, here are the facts on the property. Here's your purchase price, assuming you get it for that price. If you're going to flip this, and that's the mechanic I have going here, holding it for 2 months, figuring your sale valuation is $233. Your profit is going to be roughly $82,000. Cash investment return, your profit margin. Come in here, here's what your leveraged analysis looks like on the property. What the cash flows look like. What your purchase and sale resource looks like. Source of funds, I structured this with a cash buyer. And then you have reports that you can pull depending on what scenario you're looking at. This would look altogether different if you took the position of buy and hold for a rental purpose, and you can do that same analysis with this tool. Always through RPR, we have the ability for you to get help. We have training videos. There are blogs, which are down at the bottom of the page, which show you how to get help. There's also a 24/7 tech line or a live chat line. So you can always get help from a person anytime 24/7. The blogs give you updates on what the latest changes are in RPR, and you can sign up for an email delivery that'll tell you every time there's a new release coming out and what that new release is going to impact. Okay? Let's move down a little bit further. Had we put some notes or some additional photos in, which you would have the option of doing, you can enter that information here. Current homeowner facts, facts about the house. You have the option here, if you know that some of these items are incorrect, after you've previewed the house, you can go through and make adjustments here. So maybe I know after I've been through it that, yeah, there's actually 3 bedrooms and there's 2 full baths but a partial also. I can make those changes here. That changes it for the scenarios I'm building. If Linda were to pull the same property up, she's going to see this. She won't see the changes that I made. Those are just are tied to my account, nor will it change anything in the county record. So if it's wrong and you correct it, it corrects it only for your use. As we scroll down further, what the values have done in that area over the last year or 3 years. And these, if you're working with a client and you are online, these are live lines. So it's going to show you at spot value what that number looks like. As you come down further, here's the distressed information on this property. So we can see that this one's been through a little bit of distress. Interior details on the property, exterior details, and then any location details, what the flood zone is, walkability score, amenities and leisure, and then any notes that you want to add to that information. Also other details as the county shows them. What schools are involved in that area, what the legal is, what the mortgage records on the property are, and this will drill down to showing you what the document number, the loan number, and who the lender is. Any tax information on the property, any deed information. So do you think, and here are the schools that are in the influence area of this particular property. So do you think just on the first page there's information that you'd find pretty useful preparing for a listing appointment or guiding a client through a purchase? Let's go in a little deeper then. Once we come off the first page, we can look at the history of this property and a little more graphic. Each one of the green dots is an assessor value for the property. This is our live line, again, showing what the value of the property has done over the course of its time period. This is an assessor market value, and here's where we are today. Every place you see a red line is where distressed activity has occurred. Had any of these gone to sale, or had there been a new purchase, you would see a little gold house where the purchase was, and you'd see a little blue and white dollar sign showing here's where the financing activity occurred. Okay, so a refi would show up on here, and again, this is our AVM or our RVM. Anytime you're not sure about the data that you're seeing, there's always a little footnote here where you can click this and get more information on the data that you're looking at. Where did they come up with this? What is this actually covering? So you can see in 2011, roughly, value of this house was under 150. Right now we're a little bit over 2.25. Again, any notes you want to add to that, these will go into any reports that you print. Here's prior sales. Who's owned this house over the years? And again, you can add more information to get down to the document number, recording date, what the mortgage document was, what the tax assessment info looks like. Again, more information on the mortgage records, what the distressed info looks like, who's the attorney handling the case, etc.
Can you go back up? I want to see if that matches what it says mobile. So on the mobile side, it says the auction date was 3/23/16. I was just curious how quick the real-time data feed is on that.
3/23 or 11/23?
It says auction date 3/23/16 for the property. Are you going over with this?
Yeah, it's been extended several times.
So that's why I was wondering, what's the real-time data feed from RPR to public records, or from public records to RPR?
Every 15 minutes.
So why is it so late on the mobile side?
Are you all the way into it?
Yeah. It says the unpaid balance is $100,037. Following along with you mobily, actually. Interesting though.
It is interesting. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Also have a question. If you change whether any data, is there a save button or it's automatically saved?
If you're changing that data,
Yeah.
it'll hold it for this session. So if you make a change on the first page, and you're going to see when we refine values, where that comes into play more. It'll hold it for this session. If I log out, it's not likely to be there when I come back. Okay? All right. Let's go into some of the charting that they offer you. This is essentially all the information you've seen so far thrown into graphs. Again, live lines always in front of you, so you can see at that particular pinpoint what that is looking like. So we've got median estimated home value versus list price. You can see it's following it pretty close. Sale price versus volume. Here's your sales prices. Here's your listing volume. Median list price versus listing volume. Listing inventory. So in this zip code, 29 single-family residents active, 5 condos, townhomes, and apartments. Inventory of stressed or distressed data, 27 pre-foreclosures, 18 foreclosures. Now keep in mind, these numbers may not be reflected here. So what does that tell you about this area? Potentially a lot of shadow inventory, as we've been told. Okay. If we pulled up the active data and there were 27 distressed or pre-foreclosure properties showing as active, that gives us a little different picture. But just looking at this overall, we don't know whether these are included in this or excluded in this. All right. What is the sales price by square footage? Here's our comps, and here's our subject. Well, at the initial RVM price of $242, looks like for a comparable house, 1401, we might be a little on the high side. You saw the refined value brought it down to 233, which is a little closer to where this is at. But again, what you're looking for is abnormalities to help you dial in your information a little closer. How about square footage of homes? This one, 172 per square foot. Is that falling kind of in the parameters? Ideally, it should be 165 or lower, but it's still within the range. Price of bedrooms sold, price ranges of homes sold. Here's our biggest percentage, is going to be in the 225 to 250 range. Even at the RVM of 242, we're right in the range where the highest number of homes are being sold. Average age. This is an important one to look at too. Do you have an anomaly in the neighborhood or not? Here the average age is 50 plus years. This one's 64, so it's pretty much falling where it should be. If this was 4 and this was the rest of the neighborhood, now you've got to make some adjustments in terms of, this is not a real comparable property to everything else around it, and how do I adjust my numbers accordingly? So we're 3 pages in. What do you think so far? Do you see some valuable tools? Okay, let's talk about refined value. If you want to adjust the basic facts, and here are the basic facts as the county shows them. All right, maybe I know the room count is different, or as we talked earlier. Here's our additional partial. Here's our additional bedroom. What's that going to do to impact our sales price? Well, in this particular case, it adds about $5,000. Here's where your experience is really going to come into play as well. Occasionally, you'll get values, particularly in higher-end homes, where the addition of a bathroom adds a number that you just look at and say that isn't right at all. Make that adjustment on your own as you move through this. Okay, refined value based on home improvements. Have you all seen the DIY cost versus value report? Okay. What that does is say, here's a basic improvement. If the cost of this improvement is this is what it's worth in real dollars, right? Very rare to find something dollar for dollar. So what does it look like? In this particular case, it takes those numbers from the zip code that the home is in, and it adds a time equation to this, so you have a time value impact. So if I come in here, and we say that they have done a basement remodel. Okay, the first thing I get is, here's what a mid-range basement remodel looks like. So now we can look at that and say, okay, that's pretty close to what I'm seeing in this basement remodel. Or maybe it's not even close to that. But that gives me the information of what the expectation is for this improvement. Okay, when was it done? So if this basement remodel was done in June of 2008, and it was a total outlay of $25,000, what does that look like in today's dollars? Let's add it about 50%, so about $12,000 for that. Okay? This is a way to soften some of the impact of your seller when they say, well, I just put a brand new furnace in. It cost me $4,000. I just put a brand new water heater in. It cost me $2,500. This softens the blow of saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you put an 80% efficient furnace in. You put an 85% efficient water heater in. It has been my experience that heat and hot water are expectations in the state of Colorado. And these are pretty standard items. Now, is it a heat pump situation where there's a lot of energy efficiency? Is it a tankless water heater system? Then those may be considered enhancements. But to have exactly what everyone else has, but newer, is not going to impact that value by $7,000 or $8,000. So this helps you soften that blow a little bit. The other thing that you can do, and again, you can show them here what the impact of some improvements can have. Today is November of 2016. We have a fiberglass upscale door that we're going to spend $4,500 on. And what does that do to our value? We're not going to get dollar for dollar, but we're going to get $3,000 out of the $4,500. If you find these things aren't critical, hit restore to original and they're gone. We also give you the other side of that discussion. The refine your value based on needed improvements. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the carpet is shot. So we're going to put carpet in here for $4,500, and we're going to take our initial value that we have here, and we're going to lose $4,500 off of that. And again, you can go through the improvements as you walk through the house. It needs this, it needs this, it needs this. And you can show them how those items can offset whatever you've added in here.
So improvements, it gives you the added value number. In the needs improvements, you have to make that number up.
You would go off of an estimate ideally because it's talking about today for the needed improvement. When you're looking at an improvement that has been made, you're factoring in when that was made also. So maybe it wasn't made today or yesterday, it was made a year and a half ago. What the impact of that time versus value equation is. This, it really helps if your homeowners have good records to show when the improvement was done, what they paid for it, what actually was done, invoices or whatever. I had the fortune a few years ago, I listed one of my neighbor's houses And when I said, do you have any records of your utilities or improvements you've made on the house? He handed me a journal that had every utility bill since the house was built in 1970, broken out by category: water, gas, electric, every improvement, the cost at the time. And we handed that to the buyers at closing because it was, if nothing else, historically it was a great piece of information for them to have. They knew exactly what that house had done over the years. So then we have some easy refinements that we can make based on these sliders here. What would you say our market condition is right at the moment? Hot? Real hot? If I was making this adjustment in May, would it be different than what I'm doing now? So in May, would it have been more over in here? 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 Now, do you think? Okay, so let's see what that does to our value. It added about $5,200, $5,300. Home exterior condition. This is where your information or your knowledge of the neighborhood becomes critical. Because what we're looking at is, what's the exterior of this house look like compared to everything else in that neighborhood? Is it way better, way worse? This house only has 3 cars on blocks, the rest have 6. How does this impact the value? What's the interior? How are you going to get that information? Probably going to have to preview some properties, right? To see what this one looks like compared to the others that are on the market. Not a bad thing to do, and maybe even take your seller with you when you do that. So do you think this is better or worse than yours? And do we price higher or lower than this one? Lot size, pretty easy. You can pull that off of the maps to get an idea. Is this one a lot bigger, a little bigger? View. View is a pretty subjective opinion here. And you have to be careful with this one because sellers are very defensive about their views. I had a listing appointment once where I went and I was talking to the seller on the phone, and she said, you know, the view alone is going to add $25,000, $30,000 to the price of this house. So in my mind, I'm seeing Pikes Peak to Longs Peak unobstructed at the top of the hill, so nobody can ever be in my view. And what she was looking at was the spillway coming off between Parker and Chambers Road, where it was nice green space and you had deer walking around in there and it was pretty, but it wasn't, in my opinion, $25,000 or $30,000. But you have to couch that because you can't offend them with this. So you might say, well, you know, compared to the other properties, it's a little better, but it's maybe not quite that high. Privacy. There was a morning marketing meeting once where a listing was presented and they said, and your buyer has the confidence to know nothing will ever be built immediately behind this house. And that was true because the backyard butted up to Chambers Road. So nothing was ever going to be built back there other than the road. So again, what's it look like compared to the other properties in the neighborhood? All right, let's zero these out here so we can get into our comps. And again, you're still seeing all this information here on the neighborhood, the zip code. So now we're going to go into a comp analysis. We have confirmed this is what the house looks like. So we're going to go to confirm home facts. Any changes that I decide to put in are going to come in and impact slightly. You're going to see that those things are highlighted in blue. Okay. Yes, this is what this house looked like. So right now, the average of the comps that it pulled are 235. The original RVM you saw when we started, I did a couple weeks ago for a different class, so that's why this is flexed a little bit. So now, this is the average of the comps. Let's search for things that we think are more appropriate. So again, here's our information on our subject property. Do we want to tie this to any specific subdivision? If you find in a couple of places, say you're in Englewood, and Cherry Hills butts up against the houses you're comping against, that's going to impact your values a lot if you pull one of those comps out, right? So you want to exclude or include those comps. Do that with your keywords. What kind of timeline do you want to use? The last week, the last 3 months, or is there a specific date range? This house is 3 beds, so maybe we want to set this to look for 2 to 4, 1 up, 1 down. 2 baths, again, same thing, 1 up, 1 down. It's 1401 living area. What do you think about this range? 1,000 to 1,800, is that a good range? Would you tighten it up at all? So where would you go here? 12? 1,200? 16 then? 2 up, 2 down? Okay, and let's see what that gives us. All right, in this particular area, looks like we've got some good solds. 1494, that looks pretty good. This is an off-market comp, 1396. So this would be the assessor's value. We've got one here, 1304. So we're just going to select these as we see and as we look and see that they're appropriate. If you want more information, you think, well, this one looks kind of good, but I'm not really sure. Come here to more details. It's going to open in a separate tab the information on this particular house. Okay, so we can see that this backs up to Potomac. Here's the information about it. Is it a good comp? If we say yes, then we come back here. We're going to continue to use it. Here's another one here that, again, now we're getting a little small, but we're still within our range. And let's look at our sold date, 10/14. That's probably fairly accurate. It was just a little over a month ago. So once we've built the comps that we want to look at, we set our default to 3 months. Okay. You can actually take it to last week. If you're in an area where there's a lot of activity, that might give you the best pricing area or pricing picture that you would want. So here is the list of the comps that we have selected or have been used in the RVM. Gives us the distance away, how long they've been in the system, what the sold date was. Okay, 11/17, that's probably a pretty good number, huh? So maybe we want to add this one in. Here we're almost a mile away. That's probably not as strong. So we go through here and double check the ones we've pulled off of our map and say, yeah, that's a good one, or maybe I want to get rid of this one. And we come in and update our value. So now we're at 248. Okay? We've worked through this, and we can go through and adjust our comps here to determine, is this better or worse? Is this the one we want to hold the highest value, or do we want to shift it? If I take this one and say, no, this is number 1, it's going to push these other 2 down. So you can go through and refine here. Again, update your value. And then what do you do with it? We're going to create some reports. We can create a report on this property, and ideally you might want to do a seller's report. So you're going to hit create report. I'm going to caution you here, as you go into these, pay attention to the details. This allows you to select or delete information that you want to have in this report. In the property report and the seller's report, if you have everything checked, it's real easy to get to 130 plus pages on this. So you want to get an idea of what you, and as you play with the program, what's important and what isn't. So when you get into some of this information, you may decide that having every subject property listed or every comparable property listed individually isn't quite as important, and you're going to take those pages out. So that'd be with your comp analysis. Historical photos, you may decide not to have every photo ever taken of that house that's available in the public record. And you can trim them down that way. Okay, once you say that you're ready for the report, you can include the recipient's name, put your buyer's name in, how you want it delivered, and you'll get that report. Some of the other ones that you can do are market activity reports. So here's Littleton, and this one I did a couple of weeks ago. But this is going to show what's been going on in the Littleton area. All right? We can do a school report and drill down to a specific school. Or we can do a neighborhood report. The neighborhood reports come out of census data. They will drill down to a point, but they will not go to drill into all the census data. Since NAR is providing you this as a tool, they're insulating you from getting yourself into a fair housing issue, which if you go into the true census data is very easy to get into. So it will leave out those areas where it could create a fair housing problem for you. All right? Let's talk real quick here, since we're getting to where we need to go to some questions. Some of the other things you can do with this. First of all, when you go onto the mobile app, imagine yourself, you're walking through a showing, and your client says, you know, I really like this house, but I'd like to know a lot more about it. So you go into your mobile app, you type in the address, you pull a very quick mini property report, which is going to include this information here, and you email it to them. Now, as you're walking from the door to the car, their phone buzzes, and there's the information they just asked you for. How professional does that make you look? You're so on top of it, you got them what they needed in seconds. The other thing you can do is use this as a tool for relocation buyers. So let's just say that we want to manage the relocation buyer's expectations. If they're coming in, what are they leaving behind, and can we get close to that here? If they're going out, what are they leaving behind, and can we get close to that there? So let's just say that I have a buyer being transferred from the Southeast Michigan area to the Denver metro area. And I know, because he's given me his address, what he's leaving behind. So I look at this, and he's leaving behind a home in South Lyon, Michigan. And that house is worth roughly $465,000. Can we hit that? Probably reasonable that we can find him a $465,000 house in the metro area. So let's look at a little deeper on what he's got. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2866 square feet. Can we still hit that, do you think? We might be getting a little tighter on this. So let's move down a little bit and see, okay, now we're getting a little bit more concerned that we may not be able to meet his expectations. I'm thinking it might be a little tight at this point. So let's come down and see what else we can find out about this house. Aha, it's on an acre and a third. Are we still going to be in that 465 range? You don't think so? All right. So we're going to have the conversation about, to get you what you left, we're going to have to be a little bit higher priced than where you were at on sale of your home. Let's maybe see what else we can find here. As we back out, well, he's on a cul-de-sac. This is a friend of mine's house, so I can tell you this with confidence. This is an inlet to an inland lake. So I'm really concerned that I'm going to be able to find him what he had in this kind of price point. But the advantage is I know. You all pull the Zillow number before you go to a listing appointment to see how it lines up with your CMA, because you want to know what they've seen versus what you have. This gives you the tools to do the same thing and to know what they're leaving behind as they're coming this way, so that you know that, hey, I can meet their expectations, or how do I manage their expectations. Same thing if they're outbound. Okay, so 2866.43, let's say that my friend is moving to Orange County, California. And I want to get him a 3 to 5 bedroom house. We're going to go we'll let it catch up for a second. Let's see where this is going to put his expectations. We're not even going to enter in put on the lake or any of that. So while this is, okay, here we go. So some of our recent solds are going to be even more alarming to him than what we had here. Do you think he's going to be greatly disappointed in what he's going to get for $465,000 in Orange County, California, compared to where he's at now? These are all 90 million plus. Yeah, that's it. So any questions that we have here? And again, if any questions, please bring them to the mic. Folks in Montrose, any questions you have, we'd love to hear them. Yes. Go to the mic, please.
So far you've spent a lot of time talking about plug in a property address. Does this have any macroeconomic information? So can I see Aurora as a whole?
Absolutely.
So I can compare that to, so I can take that to a client and kind of put the macro piece in perspective.
So you're going to come to market activity, Aurora, Colorado. No questions? Okay. And this will give us that information that you just asked for. Oh. Okay, thank you. So here's what's available on the market. If we look on our map, this will give us our active count. And as we page through, it'll give us each individual, all of our actives, all of our under contracts, all of our solds, all of our distressed.
Will this be able to go back and say, in 1970, this is what the average price in Aurora was?
It only goes back as far as the RE Colorado data goes back, which is currently, Gary, about 10 years? Any other questions?
For those of you with questions, if you can stand up to the mic so monitors can hear, that would be appreciated.
This is not a question, but it's an extension of what we were just going through right there. As you go to the next step on RPR, you can build your own broker dashboard so that you can establish the area that you're interested in, and it will provide you weekly and monthly stats and other types of things that will help you as you're moving forward and talking to a buyer or seller.
And that was that section that we covered in the beginning in terms of your saved zip codes or saved areas. So you can get that update just by saving an area in your profile. Okay? The other caution I'm going to give you is this is a national portal. Just as you were seeing that I can pull things from Southeast Michigan, I can pull things from California. Your listing data is your spot on stage. So if, for example, you find it humorous when it says directions to the property to put, go buy a GPS, you cheapskate, that's your statement to the nation. Forever. So this is fed by your listing data. This is the description straight out of RE Colorado. These are the photos straight out of RE Colorado. Sorry, I keep tapping the scroll on this. So be careful what you're putting in your listing. Again, it's going to be a garbage in, garbage out type of system. If the information you put in is wrong, then the information they get at the other end is wrong. If there are items that are in conflict between the public records and your listing data, it's going to show up here as well. Okay? Anything else? Well, that's the 30,000 foot overview. I do a 2 and a 3 hour class that drill down deeper into other aspects of the program and also into the commercial side of the program if you're interested in that as well. But I thank you all for attending. Thank you, Montrose. Thank you, Modine. And we appreciate your time today.